All right, all right. Welcome, my friends, to another episode of TWC Talks, the Wealthy Consultant Talks podcast. I'm excited to be here with you today, and I have a special guest, Miss Ali Larkin. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. How are
Oh,
you?
excellent, excellent. I'm excited to have you here. I know, we've only just recently met, but we've been in chat for a while now. We've had some emails going back, I think, since like February, I think it was. So we've had the benefit of that. But I am very, very curious to dive into your world, into your mind. And I know you have a background and a life experiences that are going to be really valuable to our guests today. So I'm excited to have you on and dive in. But before we do, let's give a little intro. Give us a quick snapshot of to your background. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you focus on? We'd love to know more about you.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here. So my name is Ali. I'm a life coach. I've been coaching for the past 3 years. I'm from a very small town on the west coast of Scotland, but I currently live in London, and where all you guys were over here a couple of weeks
Yeah, we were
ago.
just over there. I didn't realize you were there. We should have met up. Gosh. All right. Well, we'll do it again.
You need
We
to, you,
loved it.
you need to ask Karen about why I didn't meet you guys. Ask him about it, and he'll tell you a funny story.
Got it.
Um, Um, so yeah, I've been coaching for 3 years. I coach women. I used to coach both men and women, but now I predominantly focus on women. And it's the coaching that I do is based on using energetics in business and using their feminine energy to attract the masculine energy in the form of money, and also healing their blocks and their masculine energy, which is comes from, and my belief is that it comes from strange relationships with their fathers when they were younger can actually inhibit people in how they earn money in adulthood. So that's what I focus on.
Amazing, amazing. And so this is really cool because a lot of times, especially in the business world and even for our podcast, we typically will talk more strategic and tactical. We'll go mindset though for sure. But I think with your background and your insights today, I'm excited to add this in because brings a whole nother dimension to the relationship. And prior to us hopping on here, we're talking about money, man, and God, and people's relationship and their experiences growing up in childhood, and all these things that I think we get so busy and wrapped up in the day to day and running our businesses and goal orientated and all these things. But I think it's important to remember that a lot of people are operating through paradigms that were created from years and years ago in their past. And unless we address those or at least acknowledge them, it can skew our trajectory in business and in life naturally. So just really, really interested to talk to you about it today. I know with your background, your specialization, you mentioned fear being a primary driver, especially in the areas of money and success. So let's talk about that a little bit. What do you find out there when you're talking to your clients? And I know you do a lot of speaking engagements and all kinds of stuff. Are you seeing common threads, or what are the macro, the big issues that you're finding in people that, regardless of where they're in the US, the UK, whatever, what are kind of those macro issues that, people and women in particular in business are facing today?
So one of the things that I noticed, and we spoke about this before, is there is definitely a common thread especially amongst the women that I've coached, and that first of all, I was coaching a lot of British women, and then I would see a thread in them, and then I started coaching American women, and I would see a very distinct difference between the two, and I began to correlate that one of the distinctions that I could see the patterns in was, first of all, how solid, let's say, people's relationships were with their father. First of all, also seemed to have some sort of correlation with how solid their business foundations were. And also the other one is God. So I always talk about money, man, and God. My beliefs are that these are all symbols of masculine energy. So masculine energy is the law of gender states that everything on this planet is made up of either masculine energy or feminine energy, a mix of both, right? Everything from books to us to the whole planet itself is made up of both masculine and feminine energy. Masculine energy is structured, systemized, logical, providing and protecting. So they describe men, right?
Mm-hmm.
Providing, protecting. It also describes God, protecting and providing, and it also describes money. protecting and providing. So all these things are a symbol of the one energy that we have, which is masculine. When in childhood, even, you know, generational trauma, it could be back in our ancestry as well. If we come from, and specifically I noticed this in myself, if we come from a place where any of these were seen as detrimental or, you know, negative in any way, then we carry that through into adulthood for sure. So I said to you before, I come from a very deprived area in the west coast of Scotland. So money wasn't a huge thing in our lives growing up. In fact, it had negative connotations because money was something that people over there had, but we didn't. And my ex-husband used to call this reverse snobbery, where he would say, you know, people with no money would actually think they were better than people that had money,
Oh,
because
wow. Mm-hmm.
it was almost like, you know, we've got something that you don't. Certainly where I'm from, which by the way is a very lovely place as well, but it just comes along with these problems. And years ago when I first went into therapy and I spoke to my therapist about it, he made a really good point where he was like, Scotland's a very small country, and it was being put upon by the big brother, who is England. So it's always it's always been seen as the smaller one, and it's always kind of had to fight back. So there's like a poverty mindset just from the actual country. Whereas if you look at America, it's huge, right? And it's got the American dream, and, you know, there's a lot of affluence, and I know there's also not in other places. But, and like I said to you as well, there's God is very rooted in American society, much more so than it is in British society. And so one of the things that I first started doing with my clients is, and this is how I started to notice the patterns, I asked one of my clients to describe his father in 5 words. And he used words like absent, angry, untrustworthy, and all the words had negative connotations. And he wasn't doing very well in his business at the time. And I asked him to describe money, like a couple of sessions later,
Mm-hmm.
and he said absent, here one day, gone the next, so untrustworthy. So all the ways that he described his father 2 weeks prior, he then described money 2 weeks later.
Wow.
And the
Interesting.
words were very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was also brought up in, so he's Irish, he's brought up in a Catholic country. I asked him to describe God, and one of the things he said was absent in my time of need. So when he divorced from his wife, which is, you know, a huge deal in a Catholic country, a lot of the community turned their back on him. So he described his father as absent. Money is not there in times of need, and God not there in times of need. So when I started to see these patterns in amongst the words that people would use, I was like, there seems to be a correlation between the three. And then I looked at my own life, my relationship with my father, my relationship with mother, my relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
And I realised the impact that it had on how I viewed my business. My business was built on such a shaky foundation because the root of my being was built on a shaky foundation. So I stripped my business back, gave away loads of my clients, and rebuilt it from a more solid place. I used myself as my own guinea pig, first of all.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's, I say, don't we all, you know, it seems to be that, I had a mentor years and years ago. It always stuck with me. He said, you know, leader of one, leader of many. If you can't lead one, you can't lead any. And essentially meaning that, you know, if you can't lead yourself, you're definitely not leading anybody else. Right. And so especially, I would say almost, that's even more strengthened in concept within the realm of consulting. Like, you know, obviously most of our audience is coaching, consulting, educating, etc., speaking, writing, whatever it is, you know, getting your message out. It has to come from a place of strength, confidence, and certainly the polar opposite of fear. You don't want to be operating in fear. So let's dive in on that. I feel like, you know, fear is something that we all have to deal with, regardless of our skills, our abilities, whatever level of, you know, quote unquote success we have arrived to in the current moment. Fear is just a natural part of it. What do you do? How do you talk your clients through that emotion of fear? How to acknowledge it, but also work through it? You know, it's not a matter of, well, I'm not scared, because that's, at least in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there will always be fear. It's just a matter of how you allow it to impact your actions, beliefs, and patterns, and all those things. But I would love to know your opinion on the emotion of fear and how that translates into the business world.
Yeah, I agree. I think fear is always there. It's always going to be there. There's no point in pretending that it's not.
Hmm.
But we don't want to build anything on the foundations of fear. Like nothing wants to be built on that because it's less fun. It's less enjoyable. So I coached someone who said, one of the things that I noticed as well is that people think that they'll get to a certain amount of money in the bank and that their lives will be complete. And it's like, right, I'll make this amount of money and then everything will be great. And it's always a stepping stone to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I always say that. So I first of all started out in weight loss coaching, and I would always say, dumbbells or deadlifts and donuts are the same thing, right? Someone's numbing their fear by lifting deadlifts, and someone else is numbing their fear by eating donuts. So there's the same
Wow.
thing. So the people who are in the gym 5 days a week are effectively doing the same thing as the people that are eating donuts 5 days a week. It's just more socially acceptable if you lift deadlifts and it's better for your health than it is if you eat donuts. But what they're actually doing is, because um, someone I know who was a personal trainer, he said to me, you don't worry about your stresses at the bottom of a deadlift. And I said, yeah, but the overweight woman doesn't worry about her stresses when she's numbing her fears with a donut. It's the same thing. So donuts, deadlifts, and dollars are all the same thing, because people use dollars to numb their fear as well, and they'll use it as a validation. I'm a good person if I've got this amount of money in the bank. And my theories on this is that we go up and down the spiral of life many times, and and I think you'll agree with this because I see a lot of your posts on Facebook, and I really love them, and they totally are my way of thinking as well. And it's like we go up and down the spiral to learn new lessons every single time we go, and we learn new lessons about ourselves, and we'll just keep getting thrown back down the spiral into different situations where we need to learn, right, why is this thing happening in my life, to give you a real life example, 7 years ago I gave birth to my youngest daughter. She was born at 24 weeks, so she was
Wow.
650 grams when she was born. She was in intensive care, the NICU, for 4 months, and I was in a business partnership with her dad, my ex-husband, and we basically, like, we couldn't work because we were in the neonatal unit every day, and I was pumping milk, and my little girl was 4 days old. The birth was so super traumatic, and I literally had my laptop in the neonatal unit when she was 4 days old, because we had no backup for anything. Like, we had a successful online business, but I was like, if I'm not in this business, then the business is just going to crash. And I didn't learn the lesson from that, right?
Mhm.
So 7 years later, something else happened in my life. A huge traumatic experience happened in my life, where once again I didn't have an ability to work, and I had no one round about me that could do the thing that I did. And I was like, right, I had never learned my lesson the first time. I now need to create a business where I'm like, if something should happen, touch wood, if something should happen, then I've got a backup for, I've got a system in place here that's going to back me up if my business, if I've got to take a step back. So I just kept getting thrown back down the spiral again until I learned the lessons that I had to learn. And my opinion on that is that I was still vibrating at a level of fear where, money was still something that I was afraid of. I was still afraid of the masculine. I was afraid of men, masculine security. And in my times of absolute need, which has happened, a few times in my life, the one thing that I had to just throw my hands up in the air and go, do you know what? I'm going to have to let God take care of this. And I had turned my back on religion because I had it's quite a strict and wrathful God that I was brought up with. And for years, I was like, I don't believe in anything. And then subsequently, when things happened in my life a few years ago, I was like, there's got to be something guiding me here. And I had like a huge spiritual experience when I first started meditating, and I would have them very regularly, and still having them now in the past 6 months. And I was like, right, there is something bigger than us. It just wasn't the God that I was brought up, that, if you don't do
Right.
this, you're going to go to hell. If you don't do that, you're going to go to hell. And I had to relearn from the foundations up. And one of the things was, it's like everything that happens in life is happening in our favor in some way. We just have to figure out what that is, and we might not figure it out for a long time. So when
Hmm.
my baby was born, I always say this, if someone had come up to me when Francis was in intensive care and said, oh, one day this is going to make you really strong and you're going to look back on this and you're going to, I'd have been like, what are you talking about? I was sitting at an incubator praying that my baby would stay alive. I felt like God had left me, like everything was just against me. And someone said it to me. He said, one day you'll tell another mum this story of how your baby, survived. And she was only like a few days old. And I remember looking at the guy and being like, yeah, I can't even imagine that. Like, I don't even want to think about that just now. Like, don't even speak to me. Like, I was just so angry. I was just like, no, don't even speak to me.
I don't want that lesson, right?
I'd rather just take a full-term baby out of the hospital. And then, but now looking back, I'm like, yeah, it was, 4 months of absolute hell, but it made me the person that's sitting here today. Had a very traumatic childhood. I was abused in childhood by my father. So that was the very root of my foundations, where I was sexually abused by my father. So it was completely, my foundations were built on absolute the worst confusion and shakiness that could. And I had to go back and look at all of that, look at that pain, I did therapy and breath work and meditation, and I used loads of different modalities rather than just, what I kept doing is I kept earning money and then losing it and then earning it. And I was in this spiral at the time where I'd earn a lot of money and then something would come along, slap me in the face, and I'd lose all my money again. And it was only when it happened the last time that I was like, this has happened too many times now. There's a pattern here. What is it that I need to do to first of all figure out why the pattern's there, work through the pattern, and then let it go. And I developed this process called least resistance, which is what I use with my clients, and it's patterns, pieces, and purpose. So patterns is recognizing the patterns that we had in childhood and how they affect us in everyday life now. Pieces is calling all the pieces of ourselves back together that we used to have before we broke off, fragmented in childhood. And then finding your true soul purpose, which is going out and doing the things that you're supposed to do in the world, especially as women, because women carry the emotional load in the house as well as everything else that, women now work just as much as what men do. And so they carry a financial load and the emotional load. And I think for women, what happens is we very much start aligning more with the masculine, where we become do, and we have to do this, and we have to, keep up with the men is the way that I've seen it. And it's like, it's not keeping up with the men, it's actually just running your business from a feminine point of view rather than from the masculine. It's much easier to run it from the feminine. And the analogy I always give to my clients is masculine and feminine energy are poles apart, they're polar opposite, and so they're like magnets. So if you can run your business from your feminine energy, then the masculine in the form of money will be magnetized towards you like that. It'll be quicker.
Yeah.
Right?
Isn't that good? Yeah. Fantastic.
So the masculine builds. The masculine is a building thing. It's a building energy. It's logic and structure. Feminine is an attraction. It attracts like that. So if you think about feminine energy in the form of paintings, movies, books, right? It's creativity. Creativity is one of the most expensive things that we can buy. One of the things I say to my clients is look at like clients like Beyonce, right? She's not out doing every day, working. She's spending most of her time resting and then using her feminine creativity to write songs and sing songs. And she's also like, making a fair amount of money doing that, because what happens is her feminine energy is attracting the masculine energy in the form of money. But what we're teaching women to do is we're trying to teach women to build businesses in the same way that men do. So it's like you have to do all the time, which is not the way women were designed to be. Women were actually more designed to be in alignment with their feminine energy. And so one of the things that I get my clients to do, and because they're so ingrained in having that mindset of I need to be doing this amount of work and that, and I'm like, no, we're actually going to take a huge step back and we're going to be doing dancing in your kitchen. Like I've got all these like things that people do and they're like, right, okay. And I'm like, just try it. You're going to get up every morning, you're going to dance in your kitchen first thing in the morning. Breath work, meditation, doing things you enjoy, painting, drawing, writing. So I had one of my clients over from Canada spending the week in London, which is also why I couldn't come and see you guys, because she was there at the same time. And she said to me, what are we going to be doing while I'm in London? And I was like, no itinerary, no structure, no nothing. You just turn up and we'll see where we go every day. So I hired an Airbnb. We went to Buckingham Palace. We did things like that. We did a lot of just relaxing, just being with each other, just sitting in each other's company, just chatting. We did dancing in the kitchen together. She's an online coach. She was like building her business. She had 8 sales calls booked in 4 days in the space of time that she was just sitting doing her relaxation techniques.
Mm.
She's now, June's going to be our highest month, so our highest earning month so far this year.
That's super interesting. Yeah, I find that too. Over the years, if I look back, just even top of mind, very quickly scanning through over the last, couple decades of being in businesses and whatnot and doing everything, I can definitely identify periods of more of like a flow state we would associate to, I suppose, and obviously probably certainly more operating the masculine energy, but there's still that flow state. And I think that's kind of what you're touching on too, right? Is letting the woman energy be in their flow state, and how much more attractive that is to their objectives, rather than trying to force it or to operate from a masculine side of things that just may not be, as genuine as, them showing up in the marketplace. And it's just simply not as genuine or attractive, like you're saying.
I think feminine energy, and obviously men have it in abundance as well, and some of the most creative people that we've ever had on the planet have been men creating from their feminine. I write a lot. On my Facebook book posts are very much in storytelling mode. I always say the Celtic people are storytellers. My mum's family were Irish, so my family are Celtic back as far as you can go. People often say to me, how do you find the content? Like, how do you write the way that you do? And I'm like, I spend a lot of time sitting under trees. And I literally like to go and sit under a tree, and then I think it's divine guidance, divine providence. Like the ideas will come to me, and I'll sit down and I'll be in flow state, and I'll just write. I wrote a book in 3 days in October last year, like about 40,000 words in 3 days. I sent it off to some publishers and it got accepted, and I decided not to publish it, because when I went back and reread it in February, about 5 months after I'd written it, I was like, I don't like the feeling of it. It's coming from very much still a fear-filled space where I spoke a lot about my childhood, but I never spoke about it. I spoke about it still from a very dark place, rather than finding the light at the end of the tunnel, which I think there is always light at the end of every tunnel. So I recently started rewriting it, and I went to Barcelona at the weekend to give myself some space, some energetic space. And on Saturday, I went to a city called Zaragoza, which is just about 90 minutes inland. And I sat in a basilica, I sat in a sacred site for most of the day. And then I got up on Sunday morning and wrote 15,000 words in the book, because I gave myself so much space. I was just like, all right, okay, I've got all these ideas now. I think as well, it was a sacred site. I think that the divine had a hand in what I was doing, but it was also just giving myself space and time, rather than sitting down at my computer and be like, right, I need to write 5,000 words. I was just like, no, go and sit down. And I, I was just sitting there. I sat in this temple for hours and hours, just taking in the energy that was round about me, walking around and looking at everything, and then the next day I was able to write a lot.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot here, especially with our modern day consultant clients. MDC, we call it. It's kind of our top tier clientele, and about the need of creating buffers, space in your calendar, thinking time. There's so much dead air, dead time spent just scrolling and doing things that feel, for whatever reason, they feel productive, but they're not. It's just activity. It's not productivity. And the act of just sitting still without any other outer stimulus, no screens, no sound, no music, all these things. It's actually can be hard for your brain to starve your brain of input long enough to pick up on, like you said, that frequency and tuning into your true energy. I think it's a skill set that has to be worked at, because especially nowadays, I just don't think that we're it's just not talked about a lot. The need to actually just sit still and not do anything. That for a lot of people is a pretty foreign experience. as we wrap up here, let's kind of circle up. So we've talked about, some pretty big topics here: man, money, and God. Masculine energy, feminine energy, some big things. So what are some takeaways that we could pass on to our audience here if they're dealing with fear, if they feel like they're dealing in a scarcity mindset, in a fearful mindset, and that's starting to probably, with today's talk, they're probably becoming aware of like, wow, this may actually be translated into my business, certainly other areas of their life as well. But what suggestions, what takeaways could we provide our listeners today that may help at least, get started and go in the right direction? Obviously, we can't cover everything in only a short time, but what can we pass on that you think would help them as they move forward through these different emotions and realities that we're kind of uncovering today?
I think the very most important one, and you said it and then you touched on something else maybe without even realizing, is stillness is the first and foremost. It's difficult for people to sit in silence because it's very naked. You start remembering things that you don't want to remember. You start thinking about things that you actually don't want to think about. But that's the first step in removing the energetic blocks that you've accumulated in childhood. So stagnant emotions are held in our bodies throughout our childhood and into adulthood. We can release them through one of the main things that I teach is to release them through breath work. So it's something that only myself got in touch with in the past year or so. And more so in the past 9 months. Breath, to me, whenever I've been afraid, I've held my breath, right? So you go into freeze mode. Breath is the vehicle in which we move energy around our body, and emotions are energy and motion. So if we hold our breath, we're in effect holding the fear inside our body. So if any of my clients have got big decisions to make about money, if they've got big decisions to make about their business or their relationship, their kids, I say to them, go and do a 15-minute breathwork exercise. Become present with your body. So my female clients, I say, ask your womb. Your womb's got all the knowledge. Your womb can create babies, so it can create the answer to your problems. So one of the things I get, and I get my male clients to do it as well, put both feet on the ground, put your hand on your body. If you're a woman, put it on your womb. If you're a man, put it on your heart. Just breathe into your body, come out your mind and into your body. And usually when I'm doing this on a live call with someone, what I've realised is my voice, I think, is in a way kind of like hypnotising people to come down out of their mind and back into their body because they're listening to the rhythm of my voice. And they just close their eyes and they come back into their body and they forget what's going on in their mind. And I'm like, ask yourself a simple question, a very, very simple question. Don't overcomplicate it. If you've got a business decision, just ask yourself something like, what's the solution? And a one sentence answer will come into your body. But we need to be still and silent for that to happen. We don't go looking for the answers, you just actually still your body. And the other thing, because I think you said there something about holding your breath or taking a deep breath, and it's like that's so important. Stillness and breath are the foundation of everything that we have. It's where we first created the fear in our bodies as well, by holding our breath when we were afraid. So those two are their foundation of every single thing that we've got going on this planet. Our energy is everything. Everything's based on our energy. It's based on the energy that we're giving out and based on the energy that's coming back to us. If you're in a situation, like I tell my clients, if you're in a situation where you're going on sales calls and the answer is no, and then it's no again, and then it's no again, that person sitting across from you is just a mirror. They're only a mirror that you're looking in. What is it that you're afraid of? Whoever sets the room, this is how I teach it, whoever sets the room is the energy of the room. So if I send someone a Zoom link, so you set this room, you sent me a link, and I come into your room. So basically what I've done today is I've come into your house. Right, we're doing it through cameras, but I'm in your house. You made me feel very comfortable when I come in, and you chatted to me, and your energy was awesome, and I felt safe and I felt protected. So that enables me to just open my mouth and let everything flow out. So you're on a sales call with someone, you have to make that person feel that way. They have to feel safe and protected and provided for in your house, regardless of if you're the woman or the man. You've got to take the masculine pole, and the masculine pole is, I'm going to make you feel safe, because energy matches energy every day of the week. Whoever's got the strongest energy, the other person's going to match it. So if you created the room, then you should have the strongest energy. If you're getting no's on sales calls, then you're afraid of something and you need to go and find out what it is, because your potential clients are actually matching your energy. They're just a mirror for you. So if you keep getting no, 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 don't look at them. Go and sit with yourself and see what's going on. And one of the things that I've found is that, I had a conversation with small business owners and their ladies. Like, a woman said to me on a call one day, I just need more leads. And I was like, I don't know what you mean by that. And I do, obviously, and I was being facetious, but I was like, tell me what you mean by that. And she's like, I need more leads on my front end. I said, no, tell me what you mean by that. I need more people. And I was like, why do you need more people? Because I need more money. And I was like, right, that's not what we're here for. You're not here to sit across from someone because you need something from them. You're here to sit across from someone because you're giving something to them and they're going to give you money in return for it. If you go into that call from a place of lack, from a place of need, you're afraid and that person's going to say no. You need to go and figure out why you believe that you need money. Because if you need money, you're going in there like a beggar.
That's right.
And they will match your energy and they'll be like, I don't feel safe here. I don't want to buy your product. I don't feel safe. So you have to be taking the masculine pole, which is why it all comes down to energy. You need to make your potential client feel safe, protected, and provided for with your program at the end of it. Then they'll say yes. But you're the predominant energy in the room.
Fantastic. That was beautiful. Love it. Yeah, it really is cool. Like I said, I will admit, I'll be the first to admit that I spend a lot of time in the more, right brain, tactical, strategic side of business, very analytical structure, systems, tools, automations, right? But it's just so refreshing to dive into this side of things because I'm also very, I'm fascinated for one, but very, very much of a believer and recognize the true impact and actually the ultimate, importance of understanding our energy, where we're coming from, the reasons behind our thinking and how we're operating, the paradigm we're operating through, the frequency we're operating on, and how that impacts everybody around us. And like you said, the mirror, I thought was just a fantastic analogy. So as we go, we could go on and on, honestly. Like I could talk with you for like hours for sure. I can already tell we're going to talk more for sure, but we can't today. We're starting to hit our threshold here. So how can people learn more about you? Let's go there because I want to make sure that people can connect into your world, learn more about you, learn more about how you where you're teaching, what you're teaching, all those things. What's the best way for people to know more about Ali Larkin?
So they can go to, just in the process of building a website out, which is going to be based on the concept of least resistance. The book will be out in August. The website is www.leastresistance.life. And then it's /pre-order. So you can pre-order the book there. And then you'll sign up to my mailing list and you'll get some more information about what I'm going to be doing next. But the book's going to be the next thing because I want to get the concept of least resistance out to the masses first.
Love it.
So you go there and put your details in, then you'll hear from me via email.
Okay. No, that's fantastic. I'll be sure to get that link out with the information here too, like below the videos and wherever we post this information beyond just the podcast. So thank you so much for spending time with me today. It was fascinating. And like I said, we'll definitely be talking more. I want to get you tuned into our clients over there at MDC and all the things that we're doing over at The Wealthy Consultant. I think your perspective and insights around energy at large, I think are just fantastic. Regardless of man or woman, they can benefit from what you teach. So thank you for investing the time into our audience today. And I certainly appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mike. It's been so much good fun. Awesome, I'm looking forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, that's it. We're wrapping up another episode of TWC Talks. Thank you for spending time with us today. I hope that this found you well, healthy, blessed, and successful. And I know that today's talk will certainly only add to that, to your trajectory as a business owner, as a consultant, coach, educator, whatever you may be. I know that we got some strong takeaways today. So tune in next time. We have another great episode coming up, and we'll speak to you soon. Thanks, guys.